Seek guidance for being inclusive council, welcoming new ideas, engaging widely, and deciding appropriately for our communities, both now and for the future. Knowledge of the plan. The Mount Barker District Council acknowledges the past and present traditional owners of South Australia and pay our respect to the leaders of the traditional custodians of this land. We are honoured to be on the ancestral lands of the country. We acknowledge the first Australians as traditional custodians of this country. Cultures are amongst the oldest living cultures of human history. We pay respect to the elders of the community and extend our recognition to their descendants who are present. Please consider. Apologies. All members are present, but no apologies. Questions from the gallery. Question time, 15-minute segment at the beginning of the meeting to allow the members of the public in the gallery to ask questions. It's not time to make a presentation, to have an intense discussion or debate. It's simply to ask questions. Questions must be presented courtesy and respect and must not be of a personal, intimidating, or vexatious nature. Persons in the gallery should not act in a manner that disrupts the conduct of this meeting. Questions are not restricted. Those regarding agenda items, but they must be relevant to this council or be within the jurisdiction of this council. Any questions outside of this policy will be disallowed. The minutes will reflect who asked the question and the topic. Should the question not be able to be answered, the question will be noted by the minute secretary for further investigation and responded to by administration staff at a later date. At the end of the meeting, there will be an opportunity for questions regarding tonight's agenda. Members of the public are advised that council members and staff appreciate opportunities to respond to questions outside of council meeting, as this is allowed for further investigation. Questions requiring further information. Ladies and gentlemen, are there any questions? Right. There are no questions. Now, move to the next item of business. Questions from gallery. Confirmation of minutes. Recommendation that the council held on 5th of February circulated to members for the true and accurate record of proceedings to remove that by council board and council party account. All those in favour? Conflict of interest declaration. Council reminded the requirements disclosure by members of the general and material conflict of interest in relation to items for consideration for the agenda. We have the conflict of interest in. Councillor Harding.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to declare a general conflict of interest in relation to agenda item 11.1 due to a family member who is a resident of the Southern Healthcare Facility in Mount Barker. I intend to stay in the meeting and abstain from debating, but will vote on the matter as the facility is not part of the graceful commitment deed. The deeds have been executed. I would like to declare a general conflict of interest in relation to agenda item 12.1 due to a connection with the South Australian Country Fire Service as a volunteer member of the Regional Operations Brigade. I intend to stay in the meeting and abstain from debating, but will vote on the matter as the item is in relation to a submission to the State Planning Commission and is an interest held in common with a substantial portion of residents. I would like to declare a material conflict of interest, direct pecuniary nature in relation to agenda item 12.4 due to owning a property in close proximity to the site. I will leave the meeting such that I cannot hear any discussion or voting at the meeting and say at any time while the matter is discussed and voted on the meeting. I'd like to declare a general conflict of interest in relation to agenda item 12.7 due to a family member who is a resident of the Southern Healthcare Facility in Mount Barker. I intend to stay in the meeting and abstain from debating, but vote on the matter as the facility is not part of the wastewater commitment deed review and the deeds have been executed. I'd like to declare a general conflict of interest in relation to agenda item 12.16 zoning Regional Operations Brigade. I intend to stay in the meeting, abstain from debating, will vote on the matter. The item relates to Thank you for allowing me to come and speak to you today about the agenda of the Royal Institute. The current building was built in 1956 with later additions and unfortunately in 1983. The hall is one of the largest available in the district, standing capacity of over 400, over 250-seated cinema staff and 200 The hall's size, flexibility and stage performance space makes it ideal for both local, district residents and organisations. Provides space for all age groups and all 10 minutes from Mount Barker Town Centre. It's the home of the post office, Borough Park, defibrillator and Meals on Wheels. It's the home of the Echunga Community Times and History. We are the home of community events and day-to-day social interaction. We're the home of the RSL Club rooms and used for remembrance activities. It's a meeting place for connections to be made and information to be shared. Our aim is to establish the Institute as a local support hub as part of our community resilience plan. In the last 12 months, we've worked exceptionally hard to increase our engagement with the community. Following the discovery of asbestos-containing water last year, I brought this matter to the attention of Council with an informal request for support. My understanding was that Council staff would start looking at options. Based on this, I prepared a deputation for the December meeting. This on the price and again was followed on price to tonight's meeting. Our actions today have concentrated on making the hall safe for visitors and to completely remove all of the asbestos-containing floor covering alleviate cost in the region of $6,000. We have expended $10,000 so far, removing unsafe. $5,000 each providing the toilets and $5,000 also. As you can see, the current financial position, asbestos excluded, not done at all, but with projected costs. If we were to incur the full cost of the asbestos related financially catastrophic. A major challenge is that inability is to raise substantial amounts of money in the time frame that we have. The condition of the hall is directly linked to rentability and income. We are asking for urgent financial assistance in the range of $50,000 to enable us to undertake these necessary works and remain financially solvent. In the long term, we are hoping for a council framework for the management of community assets, both council and community owned, recognising the value of community owned halls such as ours to both our local community and the wider district. Our inclusion in the planning, promotion and strategic utilisation of assets would be beneficial to us all. To move ahead, we need your support. 4 months coming up. I ask your attention to this as a matter of urgency. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Does anybody have any questions? Philip? Martin? Please stand up.
Question about usage of the hall. I am aware that phones, with the capacity that you have, how does that compare with the prior halls of our offices in terms of capacity? So is that why you would be saying? Yes, it would be staged. Having a stage so with good so you're taking
Well, thank you for your time, Philip. Thank you for making the case. 6, questions with notice cancelled. Do you have any questions with notice? There. Motions on notice. Mutual Australia Development. Have the motion there before you. In that direction.
Give me there, I've already moved that. I noticed in the agenda. If you would like me to speak on it, I'd be quite happy to do so.
Right, well, we normally ask for a seconder before you proceed. Is there a seconder? Councillor Hewitt is the seconder. Councillor Westwood, you now have the floor.
Very briefly, Mayor, I think most of it is put into the background of this particular item. It's been a very, very long journey for these residents who lived at the Camden and surrounding area. They have put up with an awful lot of activity, and I think it's probably about time they get some sort of answer from the state government, because I think council's expended all of their energies in what they are able to do, as has been put into the officer's comment. And I think the ball falls fairly in the state government's court as far as to be able to go and do something else to help these residents, because all they want to do really is live a normal life, which is not being polluted by the activities at that particular location. And I think Councillor Seeger would probably be able to elucidate on that if he wished to, if he was of a mind to.
Thank you, Councillor Westwood. Councillor Hewitt, a seconder.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I totally support this motion. Residents have had to put up with the smell for way too long, and an outcome is necessary. So I strongly support this.
Thank you, Councillor Hewitt, and you're exempted from standing up to speak for the rest of the meeting. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Seeger.
Thank you, Your Worship. I concur with Councillor Westwood's sentiments and with supporting documents. The issue in Camden has been long running. It has had a significant effect over many years on this community and on the surrounding areas. I can always tell when the wind's from the west. I can smell the wind from the west. I have spoken publicly about the desire to have this facility removed. I want to make it perfectly clear to anyone and all that I have no issue whatsoever with the production of fine compost and other materials by Nutrog. It's an excellent product. It's simply being produced in the wrong place. It's my firm belief that both the EPA and the council are quite constrained in their capacity to deal with this issue. I believe it rests firmly within the remit of the state government to assist in the removal of the compost trials to a place where they do not affect a local town of some hundreds of people who've been subject to this for many years, and it's important to focus on that. Is precisely what this motion is to authorise council to write to the state authorities to have something done about it. I'm very happy to get co-sign that letter with the mayor for this motion proceed. Thank you.
Any other person who wishes to speak to this matter? And I'll just add one further comment. We have discussed with the EPA, the council. There is one other party to this, and it is Nutrog themselves. And they are part of the solution. All those in favour of the motion? Carried. Thank you. Item 8.2, the Chunga Memorial Institute. We have a motion before council. Would anybody like to move? Thank you, Councillor Hewitt. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Harding. Nearly Hardingham, but 1 second earlier, where it was Councillor Harding.
I'm putting the motion in.
Oh, so your
My motion.
I'll
I
second
understand
it.
it's your motion, Councillor, but somebody else moved before you. If that person is happy to.
I'm happy to rescind mine.
Thank you very much. Very polite and courteous.
Likewise.
And so now I invite someone, Councillor Hardingham, to move the motion.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're a seconder. Councillor here. Councillor Harding, you have the floor.
I'll reserve my right, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor here.
Mayor,
You don't have to stand up. It's your last time, councillor.
I'd just like to speak in very strong support of this motion. The Chunga community worked very, very hard, and it is an unexpected circumstance with the asbestos issue. And I think anything that the council can do to support this hard-working committee should be supported. So thank you.
Thank you, councillor here. Another councillor that wishes to speak to this councillor vote.
Yeah, just echo that sentiment. I'm fully in support of us, taking a look at this and seeing what we can do, and in particular in the defamation, I noticed that. I think it's important, that regardless of the circumstances or the prior sort of setup of these, whether they're community-owned facilities or council-owned, I think it's the equity between them and the way that we support them, should be pretty standardised. I'm not sure of the inner workings of those arrangements, but I would be in favour of having that framework looked at and ensuring that all these facilities, irrespective of their ownership, are receiving fair treatment.
Thank you, councillor vote. Councillor Harding.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to commend Councillor Harding on this motion, and importantly, Sheila, who we heard from earlier, and the volunteers of the Chunga Memorial Institute for their dedication to find a solution to this complex problem, not only for the good of the Chunga community, but the surrounding communities who also use this wonderful facility. With our district's rapid growth, valuing and future-proofing social infrastructure district-wide is becoming more and more important. One thing I've always found heartening when visiting community halls is the use of honour boards to pay respect to past generations who have worked hard to serve their communities. The Chunga Memorial Institute acknowledges past achievements of its community members in this way particularly well. But by supporting this motion and providing whatever assistance we can as a council, we have the chance to honour the service and commitment of current committee members and volunteers by demonstrating very clearly that we value and appreciate their time and deep care for their community. Thank you.
Councillor Seager.
Thank you. I'd echo the words of my fellow councillors. Asbestos has been used in good faith in many facilities and homes and businesses over many years, and unfortunately it has turned out to be a catastrophic choice of building material. Whilst it's not a council-owned facility, I think it's imperative that council support this well-loved and well-used facility. So I can only speak very strongly in support of this. I think it's imperative to council to actually assist in this matter. I know we ask them for a report as to how we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Another councillor who wishes to speak to this matter? And I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Move to item 9, motions without notice. Are there any motions without notice from the floor? Nil. Item 10, petitions. Nil. Thank you, the Chunga community. Thanks. Good night. And I now must humbly apologise to Councillor Hardingham for not inviting me to close the debate. Not too late to have you say, councillor. I am deeply.
Thank you.
Well, I'm running the meeting, councillor. It's not too late to have you say, to have the capacity to invite you to speak, and I do sincerely apologise for not coming back.
We've moved on. Thank you.
Thank you for your consideration. We now move to item 11, recommendations from committees. We have item 11.1, the Special Audit and Risk Committee, 29th of February 24. The recommendation is that council receive and note the minutes of the Special Audit and Risk Committee meeting held 29th of February 2024 as circulated to council members and available on the Audit and Risk Committee page of council's website. In discussions with the senior management. We're not going to take on each part of 11.1, 11.1.2, 11.1.3. We are going to deal with them all in 11.1.1 for discussion, as there is opportunity later in the meeting to discuss the items that appear in 11.1.1, 11.1.2, 11.1.3. We'll discuss it at that stage with the consent of the council to treat it in that manner. Do I have a person willing to move the motion as it appears? Councillor Selassie and Councillor Westwood. Councillor Selassie, you have the floor. Councillor Selassie.
No, thank you.
Councillor Westwood. Nothing. Yeah. Any other member? Gary. All those in favour? The democratic process does work eventually. Now move to 11.1, 12.1. Straight on to 12.1. Almost like having a little microphone in your ear. Thank you. Executive Manager. Move to item 12, reports. First one is the statewide bushfire hazard overlay code amendment submission. Is there any person that would move that way? The recommendation that appears on the next page. Councillor Westwood. Councillor White. Councillor Westwood. The recommendation is before you.
Thank you, Ben. I guess the only thing I'd like to say is that the staff did a really good submission, and I hope the state government actually listens to it.
Who was the seconder? Councillor White.
Nothing, man.
Thank you for that. Councillor Seer.
Your Worship, I commend staff on this. It's an important change. I noticed with interest the mapping that's provided showing changes to the overlay indicating high and medium bushfire risk. I think that person who do it was given a compass early in the day and was practicing, because the layout of the impact of the changes are incoherent to my mind, where they simply cut across streets, through houses. It's an extraordinary change that will have very negative effects on the development in this community, because whereas before the MDPA had been rezoned from high into medium risk, now we're going to drop an overlay back onto it that meanders around like Brown's cows. I can't say strongly enough how bad this change is and how important the submission to have that looked at again. It is an extraordinary thing to do to a development industry that is busily planning their future. It will have impact on how they build their houses, on costs. It's just amazingly bad piece of work, and I really can't commend strongly enough the staff's disagreement with some of the things that are in there. Thank you.
Thank you. Another council member wishes to speak to the matter. Councillor Prosser.
Look, slightly different views on that, in that, I hear what Councillor Seeger is saying. I think it's a fair point in posing it at this stage, but the whole area was high fire risk prior to the rezoning in 2010. And because it's going to be urban, it was then changed to medium risk. I think high risk better reflects the real dangers with this huge interface between urban development and large fire-prone grassland and bushland areas. So it will create the changes will create increased workloads and delays, but might mean that we get better quality, more fire resistant housing as well, and better bedding if that's the case. Overall, I thought it was a very good submission. I agree strongly that going from 20 to 10 metres for the tree exclusion zone is a big win. And that no exclusion zone would be even better, given that what trees are not generally a danger in fires. As long as you keep ladder fuel cleared from underneath them, they also help shield embers and radiant heat. So I think that I'm pleased to see that staff picked that one up. What does worry me with fire management and private properties in the Mount Lockley Ranges is that we may have a fire compliance officer that makes people clear fence lines, 5 metres only. So that creates fire breaks and achieves that, but it doesn't do a lot to save if there's a fire roaring through a floodplain, for example, that's got 2 metre high polaris, it has to be raised or slashed for many years. It doesn't do anything to reduce that fuel load. So I'd like to see more consideration done to controls outside of just fence lines. I think that's a big gap that's missing and dangerous myself. But thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other person wish to speak to this matter? Councillor Westwood to close.
No, thank you, Mayor.
All those in favour? Carried. Item 12.2, Bolton Road upgrade final concept design. There is quite a comprehensive report before you. There's a recommendation, council on page 33. Do I have a mover? Councillor Orr, and a seconder, please. Councillor Westwood. Councillor Orr, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to once again commend staff for all the work they put into the consultation for this design. And I'm personally quite happy with the design that has been presented to council staff. I think it addresses the issues with speed that was mentioned a lot during the community consultation phase, about people flying down that hill. And I do think the raised intersections is a far better result than the speed humps there. I also think the addition of the bridge and the footpaths outside will be of great benefit to the school there. So I think this plan has a lot of positives about it. I know it'll take quite some time before the plan's fully realised, but I think the community is pretty keen for it. So thank you again to staff, and can you get into it?
Councillor Westwood.
Thank you, Mayor. I was also impressed with the raised intersections rather than speed humps for slowing traffic. I think it's a far better idea. I always have concerns about paving, always, but that's another matter. It's a shame also that there's no clarity around the intersection at Flaxley Road at this particular point in time. It's probably my only concern.
Thank you. Another member, Councillor Rosser.
Yeah, look, I think it's really good work by staff to have responded so strongly to so many of the concerns that were raised by the community. I thought there were a lot of really good community submissions. A lot of people put a lot of thought and time into it, and staff have picked up and they've made a lot of fundamental changes that do reflect the thoughts of the community expressed in their submissions. Agree on Flaxley Road, all council can do is keep advocating the dip that they deal with Flaxley Road issues is in the nearer rather than longer term. I'm really pleased that the concept plan or the report you references moving forward active transport linkages, making that an early stage, because with a school and child parent centre and it's not good practice to have education facilities without active transport linkages to be avoided if possible. So if we can bring that forward in the works program, there's some areas that won't be possible alongside roads that are going to get sections of road that's going to get heavy equipment on it, for example, but some of the linkages are well off the road and through the recreational grounds. So hopefully they can get constructed earlier rather than later. In the reports, obviously, shows the staff are open to that. I hope that occurs as a priority. And also very pleased that there are no trees to be removed, so staff have done well there to look after our vegetation. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other member wish to speak to Bolton Road upgrade? All those in favour? Oh, sorry, Councillor Orr.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity, Mayor, but I'll decline this time. Thank you.
Nick of time. Thank you. All those in favour? Carried. Item 12.3, proposed prohibition on fishing in Whitehorn Park Community engagement results. On the following page, we have a recommendation from council of all parts. Do I have a person? Councillor Westwood and Councillor Selassie. Councillor Westwood, you have a floor.
Thank you, Ben. This is probably a particularly good result, not only for the native animals that live in Bythorn Park and in the lake in Bythorn Park, but also for the community who walks around it and walks dogs around it and kids around it and all the rest of it, where even though, and I take into consideration, there are quite a number of submissions that said that there were no hazards around the lake. As indicated in the submission, certainly there are more people that think that there are. And with the prohibition, I think it will be a very good thing for the locals. I can't imagine walking around Bythorn Park Lake and having someone casting a rod and hook and having to fall, getting hooked up, and someone else's rod as they cast. Not something that you expect to happen in a place like Bythorn Park. I think some of the comments around the fact that there are introduced species of fish in the lake, they'll self-regulate over time. They'll either overpopulate and die, or become food for the turtles and whatever else. So I think it's basically a very good result, and I look forward to its implementation.
Thank you, Councillor Westwood. Councillor Selassie.
I had 25 responses during consultations encouraging, and I noted that of these, 95% of the respondents were users of Bythorn Park. Whilst I appreciate that fishing can be seen as a cost-effective recreational activity with a number of social benefits, in this instance it is a pastime that is causing harm to Bythorn Park's aquatic and wildlife. There have been ongoing complaints, and I see in the survey attachment this issue actually dates back to 2009. There have been instances of turtles and birdlife severely injured, resulting in a slow, painful death, and the need to be euthanised in other cases. Dead fish have been left along the banks, and as mentioned, fishing lines and hooks have been discarded irresponsibly by a select few, all of which are hazardous to humans and animals alike. I appreciate staff's time in taking the proposed fishing ban out to community consultation. Looking at these results, the majority ruled in asking for a fishing ban, and I support this recommendation. Thank you.
Any other councillor wish to speak to this matter? Councillor Grosser.
Yeah, look, I agree with comments. It's not just the biodiversity and the environment, but the community as well, especially the carers. Because I've spoken to wildlife carers who, especially given a lot of these incidents of distress, native animal occur on weekends when people are fishing. Often local vets are not open, and they, in their own time, have to take injured animals to the city, and by the time they wait around for a vet, it can take 4 to 6 hours. So, quite unfair on the wildlife carers. So a win for them. I think we'll need to be very proactive. It's obviously a hot issue, as I expect it would be by the number of submissions. We need to engage in a good education campaign of the public, because otherwise this will be an issue at other lakes as well. Some of us have had a lot of contact with Spring Lakes residents, and again, it's just a minority of fisher people that create the problems, but you only need a few irresponsible ones, and it will lead to what was already occurring with the distressed community members around Spring Lake. As a result, it'll lead to other lakes sitting closer fishing as well, as people can behave appropriately. So I think we need to put the word out there that fishers need to be very responsible. Thank you, Mayor.
Another councillor wish to speak to this matter? In that case, I revert to Councillor Westwood to close.
Thank you.
All those in favour? Carried. Item 12.4, closure of Mountain Pool. We have a considerable amount of documentation from council staff, a recommendation on page 68 that endorses the closure and decommissioning of Mountain Pool.
No,
I'm sorry, Mayor, I just wanted to indicate I'm now leaving the room as per my conflict of interest declaration.
Speak up, I'm an old man.
I will now leave the room as per my conflict of interest declaration at the beginning of the meeting.
Very well. Actually get into anything, but I'll now keep talking. Recommendations. Sorry? And now. Left the building. Elvis is not. Recommendation that council endorse the closure and decommissioning of the Mountain Pool upon the completion and the construction of the Regional Aquatic and Leisure Centre. Councillor Grosser to move that way, Councillor Jones to second. Councillor Grosser.
This is obviously necessary as part of the process to transition from the old mountain pool to the new state-of-the-art regional aquatic leisure centre. When it's built, I've talked to Mr. Ulianov prior to the meeting, saying I wanted to get an amendment, not being very happy with being kept or closed at the time of the construction of the new pool. I think that it would have read better if it's construction and full commissioning of, because there can be teething problems and delays between construction, obviously, and the pool being fully operational. But Mr. Ulianov assures me that that is the intent anyway, even though the wording didn't really read that way, that it won't be difficult to keep the pool in a condition where it can get rehabilitated, basically just pop up water thing, I guess. Certainly won't put Mr. Ulianov no chance of getting demolished until the other pool is steady up and running, and you know, if it blows up after a month, it's bad luck if it's dismantled, I guess, but yeah, at least make sure that the new pool, and then that could just be a problem if we hope to have the pool ready for the route ready for 25-26, but obviously delays can occur, and it may be necessary to keep mountain pool open. We hope not for some 25-26, but this motion does not, or recommendation does not close it or extending the life of mountain pool in the unlikely event it becomes necessary. So I'll just set this in assurance and leave it there.
Thank you, and I do note that the report says that the mountain pool will remain open until such time as RAL is complete. Good enough for me. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. As we have heard tonight, there is some concern brewing in the community in regards to the closure, decommissioning and future use of the site. I am pleased that rather than setting a firm date, as you pointed out, that we are holding off until the new facility is deemed complete. So I take complete being that you can actually use it and swim in it. It'd be great. I do ask that during the process of identifying items to reuse and recycle, that we do engage with the known persons who may be able to identify any significant or historical items that could be retained. Items that might not appear significant to the average person, but could be an important part of the history of the mountain pool. I do suggest we engage with former councillor Carol Bailey, former Mayor Anne Ferguson, Life member Jock Dean, and also the Thompson family. I would like to highlight that there is a memorial park bench honouring long-term coach David Thompson, otherwise known as Tomo, which is on the site. So when the site is being restored, I suggest we engage with the Thompson family, who I'm in contact with, as to the future placement of the bench, hopefully somewhere on that site. In regards to the future use of the site, as highlighted tonight, there is concern. It is a gifted community asset and we do need to honour this. We are simply custodians of this asset, of which its use has already been determined. So I do feel there is a need for us to better engage and communicate the process we will be taking in the closure of the site, and also begin to invite the community to bring forward and share their ideas of how they would like to utilise this important parcel of land. And hopefully by encouraging and engaging some conversation, it might keep it positive, and rather than people running off with their own ideas. So thank you.
And the other person that would pictures now, thank you, Councillor Seeger.
I'd just like to note that the resolution is to endorse the closure and decommission of the mountain pool on completion of the construction of the region leisure centre. It does not go into, it infers decommissioning, it mentions potential demolition, etc., etc. None of that is decided. That is all for the future. We're simply agreeing that when the new aquatic centre is complete and operational, the mountain pool will be closed, and we will then go through the process of working out how we deal with the closure, and the community's concerned. I'm sure there'll be adequate public consultation, and people who have concerns and issues Councillor Jones has raised will be addressed quite adequately at the time. I think now is not the time for that. By all means, do your homework, but not now.
Thank you, councillor Seeger, for your almost point of order and bringing us back on track.
May I ask a question?
You most certainly can.
Thank you, councillor Seeger. Why do we address community engagement on page 70? That's what I was referring to in the agenda. Thank you, but that's what I was referring to. That
So
is in
the
there.
question is better addressed to the chair than the councillor Seeger.
Thank you. Why do we have community engagement mentioned on page 70?
Because council staff produce very good reports that are full and explanatory, and councillor Seeger says we're talking about the recommendation for the decommissioning of the pool. Everything else will follow along as night will follow day.
Thank you, Mayor. I was referring to community engagement.
Well, I can answer that, can you?
Well, there you go.
Thank you. You read the community engagement paragraph, it says this quite clearly, not as a result of this report. So what it's doing is actually excluding community engagement as part of this report. It then goes on to say community engagement will be included as part of the Mount Parker Town Plan project. It's very explicit where community engagement fits. I also take the opportunity to read this part of the report, and it's important to be really clear. It says the pool will remain open until such time the route is complete, and goes on barring major maintenance operational issues. But to be clear, and of course, most of you will realise the pool does close at the end of its usual seasonal date. So it effectively closes at the end of the, if you want to call it that, the summer, early 2025 season. So what that means in practicality is it closes as per usual at the end of the season. But in terms of decommissioning, it doesn't begin decommissioning until such time as the pool or the new pool is up and running. So I guess I just want to be clear. I think everybody in the community understands that mountain pools does close at the end of the season. So, you know, I don't think that anybody should be under any illusion about the fact that the pool will be kept there, but it won't be operating, it will close as usual. And no one's contemplating at this point anyway, the necessity for the pool to open again. So that's the plan.
Thank you, Mr. CEO, as always indebted for your advice. Anybody else wish to speak to this matter? Councillor Grossett to close.
Well, just to validate my comments earlier, because given that the chairs said that the words were good enough, the recommendation, well, good enough for you, reads clearly endorse the closure and decommissioning of the mountain pool upon the completion of the construction of the route. There's features in completion of construction and full commissioning, which is why I had an issue with the wording there. And it can
Yes, your
be.
point of order.
Thank you. The point of order being is, I'm sure we've hashed this out enough in this regard to the word of the recommendation. I would suggest that if Councillor Grossett wants to amend the recommendation, that would be appropriate, would have been appropriate.
Well, Councillor Grossett, in answer to your point of order, Councillor Grossett cannot move an amendment at this stage. He's already spoken. So Councillor Grossett is entitled to his 5 minutes of talking, as long as he remains on point. And so far, to my mind, he has been. But thank you for your point of order. Proceed, Councillor Grossett.
Thank you, Mayor. I wasn't fully comfortable with the wording, but I do have assurance from the conversation that there's really not that it won't be decommissioned until the other pool is fully operational, tried and trusted, running well. So I'm comfortable with the recommendation now. Thank you, Mayor.
And I put it to the chamber that you have the recommendation before you. All those in favour? Carried. Can we please get my councillor back? Now move to item 12.5, road opening 36 Princess Highway, Kenman 2. We have a recommendation from council. Does anybody move in that direction? Councillor Westwood. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Seeger. Councillor Westwood, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. This is just a follow on from previous resolution council to consult with the public. And this is the natural progression in that we're now going through the process. Thank you.
Councillor Seeger.
I agree.
Any other member? Councillor Westwood.
Nothing further, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Westwood. All those in favour? Carried. Now move to item 12.6, submission on local government participation and elections review. We have a recommendation before council on page 84. Would somebody like to move in that direction? Councillor Orr, seconder. Councillor selected. Councillor Orr, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to thank staff for putting together quite a speedy submission. I know there were quite a few tight deadlines and glad to say government extended theirs. But I think this submission does encapsulate the views of the councillors that did put in some feedback. And I do think that those views would be widely shared by our community. So thank you very much for all that contributed and for staff putting it together. Thank you.
Seconder.
Thank you, Mayor. This was a welcome initiative of Councillor Oars for our council to prepare a joint submission in contributing to the outcomes of this local government review. I'm happy with the submission. My thanks to staff for collating our responses. I did note the feedback I provided on required training for council members was not included. I didn't request an amendment, as if not included in the final submission, I understand that a general consensus was not achieved. So I'm happy to submit this feedback separately as an amendment. It was just in regard to the question posed of whether the criteria for election of candidates should be strengthened by requiring a working with children clearance and that candidates be considered fit and proper. I have a working with children check and a police clearance for external work purposes. And my personal opinion is that if someone's putting their hand up for election to public office and community representation, then these documents should actually be standard practice. Many service and volunteer organisations also require similar background checks, and I'm aware that some of my fellow councillors may already have them. This is just my opinion, and I'm happy to submit my thoughts independently. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member wish to speak to this matter? All those in favour? Carried. Am I admitted to give councillor Orr the right of closing, but I could tell by his body language that he didn't.
It seems to be a pattern tonight, but thank you.
I apologise, councillor Orr. Move to item 12.7. KPMG review of wastewater service financial models and developer deeds. A recommendation on page 96. Have a note and receive the report, note and endorse the recommendation, and note the council be updated every 6 months. That's a brief procedure recommendation. Does anybody move that way? Councillor Selassie. Seconder. Councillor Westwood. Councillor Selassie.
I have confidence in our head of wastewater and the future direction, and I believe this external review has given insightful feedback on both the wastewater service and on suggested improvements. I think when council can implement the KPMG recommendations listed at discussion point 19.B in the agenda regarding the developer deeds and regular updating of fees within the deeds, then we'll be well placed to ensure a contemporary cost recovery model that seeks to recover growth-related investment from developers. Thank you.
Councillor Westwood. No. Any other member? Councillor Grossett.
Yeah, it's a good report and been a good process, I think. I've still got not a lot of this probably a few worries. I mean, the council conclusion is very positive, as it may well deserve to be, that it's given certainty that there are no fundamental issues with historical activities in relation to deeds, the models utilised, appropriate and accurate. Wastewater service is already making some of the changes that's all good. It's just, it had trouble knowing whether we're covering costs or not. The reference, the KPMG report reference that there was limited data on specific deeds, no further information available to verify, etc. So some unknowns there, and whether the scope was fully carried through or not is debatable. But a lot of good stuff in there, and I'm pleased that the council are already enacting some of the changes that it envisages. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, councillor. Any other member wish to speak to the matter? Councillor Seeger.
Thank you. I have no problem in accepting this report. I am somewhat annoyed by the continual reference about not knowing whether there might be something lurking under the floorboards or something. The report quite clearly says, in summary, all deeds followed appropriate process for approvals were documented correctly in council systems, and none of the sample deeds had any unique clauses warranting further review. In reviewing the discounts applied, there were relevant justifications given for discounting for fees. However, in practice of setting the fee, we have identified areas for improvements for cost-effective modelling of the fees and processes to enable more regular updating of the fees. That very process is what is being undertaken at the moment by Dr. Edmund's team, and this report restates that on a number of occasions. I am frustrated by the continual reference to we need to look at this. We have looked at this exhaustively, expensively. Why do we keep going over and over the same ground to establish that the deeds are in fact valid, have been created appropriately? There is no issue here, and perhaps we should spend more time and more money on progressing wastewater treatment plant development and less time on looking backwards over our shoulder on the off chance we might see a missed clause or a missed T or an uncrossed T or an undotted I. I'm actually quite frustrated, as you can probably tell. So I don't know how many more times we have to go through this, but I think enough is enough. Can we please move on?
Any other member wish to speak to this matter? Councillor Selassie to close.
Nothing to add to that, thank you.
Thank you. All those in favour? Carried. Move to item 12.8, wastewater asset management plan. The recommendation on page 143. Do I have a person who would like to move the recommendation? Councillor Selassie. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Vogt. Councillor Selassie, you have the floor.
My hope is people read this document, and they also read the draft wastewater long-term financial plan, actually, during the consultation period. This is a comprehensive, well-written plan that gives clear insight into the significant wastewater business of the council. I note this will also be an important document referred to by the Essential Services Commission of South Australia, so I think the bar has been set to maintain this level of standard with each annual update. I do have a question in relation to table 10 on page 19 of the wastewater asset management plan, please. The field of number of new connections lost to Alano, our competitor, is blank, which I believe is due to not presently having monthly figures available. I understand that we do have a figure for the year available, however, and I'm interested to know how many connections are lost to Alano annually, please.
That question I will put to the CEO and be mindful that it might be a question that's better treated in confidence, but I'll rely on the CEO to give me that advice.
Thanks, Mayor. I don't need to worry about confidence. It's going to answer it. I'll take it on notice. I can't. No, so we're not able to answer that, but we'd have to take it on notice. So I think we've got a problem at the moment.
We don't have a problem, we have a solution, that we'll take it on.
That's right.
Thank you. CEO. Councillor Vogt, second, double that. Any other councillor? Councillor Selassie, close. Sorry, I saw a half raised biro. You're on 12.8, sir.
Yeah, look, someone agree again with my words, I'm sure, but, yeah. I accept we're in the situation we are, I do worry about the high debt. 549% of net financial liability. I've expressed, I'll say it now, I've expressed it for years, worries about building a membrane reactor. I know there's standard expensive things there and.
Point of order, please.
Point of order, you have the floor, councillor Seeger.
I'm not sure why we should be talking about an option that we dismissed probably 5 at least years ago as to how it might be a better solution to the problem. And this hence being reintroduced as something that might have happened because Councillor Rosser went to a conference somewhere. I'm sorry, can we please move on from this as well?
Councillor Seeger, I recognise your point of order, and I do note the words that I hope people will read, that this is a recommendation to approve the master asset management plan for public consultation. I sustain your point of order on the topic that you're talking about, councillor Grosser. If you could speak to the recommendations, I'd appreciate it.
All right, so I can't reference the high debt, 7 very high risk and 3 high risk areas. All right.
It is going out to public consultation. We do have an opportunity to discuss the high debt in other venues, but I will give you your freedom of the floor to mention the high debt. But it is a recommendation that we send this to public consultation, not a debate on the actual contents of it. Councillor Grosser, thank you.
I've expressed my concerns briefly. That's probably all I needed to say. Yeah, it's, I understand my view. Yeah, all right, leave it at that. And, yeah, very glad that we have a professional, specialised manager now to look after this very complex industry. It's a huge enterprise. It's a worry. It's, hopefully we'll do well out of it.
And thank you, councillor Grosser. And I will double down on your last comment, Dr. Helen Edmonds. Do not leave this announcement on the hurry clause. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak to this matter? I'll revert to councillor Selassie to close. All those in favour? Carry. Getting better. 12.9, draft wastewater service long-term financial plan. We have before you on page 152, a 3-part recommendation for the draft wastewater service long-term financial plan for the next 10 years. Does anybody wish to move in that direct? Councillor Westwood. Seconder, Councillor Harding. Councillor Westwood.
Thank you, Mayor. As per the last one, this is a long-term financial plan which has been prepared by staff for consultation by the public. I commend staff for the amazing amount of detail within, and I hope the community can give us some very good feedback.
Councillor Harding.
Thank you, Mayor. To add to that, I would like to compliment the design and the content of the document itself. I found it a very interesting read. Don't know if that's because I'm learning more about wastewater than the council that owns and runs the biggest wastewater operation in South Australia, but if that's correct, is that correct?
Second biggest.
Sorry?
Second biggest?
Second biggest, is it?
Yeah.
Council?
Oh, sorry.
Doesn't matter, it's very big, isn't
I
it?
didn't hear the word.
But it's very big, very complex, and so is the information in the long-term financial plan. But I think it's very, very easy to follow, and I hope the community receives it just as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillor wish to speak to this matter? Councillor Westwood.
Nothing further, Mayor.
All those in favour? Carry. Item 12.10, draft strategic asset management plan. We have 2 recommendations on page 179. Do I have a mover to that recommendation? Right, councillor Selassie and councillor Vader, seconder. Councillor Selassie, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I enjoy reading this draft document and adding to my knowledge bank. The replacement value of our assets, we know that exclusions comes in at $602 million is significant. And I hope that our community takes the time to read through this updated plan. I'm very pleased to see that last year's community survey, the market community scorecard feedback has been incorporated into this plan, as it shows our residents that not only is their feedback acknowledged, it is being actively incorporated into our strategic documents as a means of continual improvement. I note that this strategic asset management plan does mention our upcoming 2024 open space strategy a number of times, as the strategy will inform asset service levels, priorities and future investment. There is also reference to the open space strategy in regard to trail planning, as our community is very keen for the expansion of the current networks of footpaths and trails throughout the district. I do have 2 questions, please, through you, Mayor. May I ask when in 2024 the open space strategy is planned for delivery, noting that, as I heard earlier, it's just commenced? That's my first question, please.
I didn't get the question back.
The open space strategy, when is that planned for delivery? It's
Mr. CEO.
You may, the open space strategy has just commenced with the appointment of the consultant podium, and the kick-off meeting was just commencing effectively this week. So the completion of that is, I understand, be mid-year, but I'll confirm that in writing.
Thank you very much. Second question, if I may. I've had feedback from residents that for a number of months they've not been able to access the reserves service levels information on the council website, as the website states that these are currently under review as part of the strategic asset management plan. I was just asking the timeframe, please, for when we can have the reserve service levels updated, or in the interim, if we can have the current levels of that.
Thank you for that question, Councillor Selassie.
Sure, Mayor. Yes, so there should be the service levels that we're currently working to on the website, so I'll get that corrected, so we can make sure there's something there for the public to reference. In regards to the other service levels, the open space strategy will set the hierarchy that you just spoke to before the question. Once the hierarchy's been set, then we'll be publishing some new service levels to our website after it's been through council for endorsement.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Vogt, I'll second that.
I'd like to thank Councillor Slatty for her inquiries, yeah, beyond that, nothing to add.
Thank you. Any other member wish to speak to the draft strategic asset management plan? Councillor Selassie to close.
I'm happy, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Selassie. All those in favour? Carried. For item 12.11. Draft consolidated council long-term financial plan. We have a recommendation on page 202, 3 parts. Anybody wish to move in that direction? Wow. Councillor Seeger, as mover, Councillor Selassie, as seconder in a dead heat, you get it by virtue of your seniority, sir.
This document brings together the long-term draft financial plan, council and wastewater combined, and so you see the overall fee. I don't think there's any further comment that should be read, understood. Always said our long-term 10-year future, yes, it does involve debt, and you have to break eggs to make an omelette. So,
Thank you for the element of advice. The seconder was Councillor Selassie.
Thank you, Mayor. If I may just ask a question through you, please.
Sure can.
The draft long-term financial plan, as with the strategic asset management plan, has incorporated feedback from the comprehensive community survey of last year. On page 14 of this draft long-term financial plan, it mentions that it is intended that the scorecard exercise will be undertaken at regular intervals. As the council's intent has been to use this community feedback to improve on communication and service delivery and incorporate the feedback into annual budget and planning, I please ask about the timing of regular intervals.
You may ask that question, and I'd like the CEO to either answer it or pass it on.
So, 2 strikes. I'm sorry I can't answer that question, but I will look to my right to Ms. Hancock.
Through the chair, we currently have a budget bid to run the market scorecard community survey every year.
Well, that makes me very happy, thank you.
Well, does anybody else have a discussion on this matter? No? Councillor Seeger to close.
thank you. I just note that this is, in fact, putting it out for public consultation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Seager. All those in favour? Carried. We're getting better. 12.12. Report title, Harndorf parking options and opportunities update. You have a recommendation before you and invite a person to move that way. Councillor Hardingham. Mover. Councillor Westwood is seconded. Councillor Hardingham, you have the board.
Thank you, Mayor. This motion is not just about presenting, the present concern about shaping the future of our beloved Harndorf. We stand at a crossroads where the charm of our township meets the challenges of modern convenience, particularly concerning car parking. As we know, Harndorf's main street is not just any street, it's a symbol of our heritage, a significant destination for tourists, a lifeline for local businesses, but by its popularity comes at a price, and that price in this case is a struggle to find a car park. It's not a new issue, it's been discussed, studied and pondered for years, and now it's time for some action. As the report details, there's not just one solution that will remedy car parking issues in Harndorf, but rather several interventions implemented by states and federal governments, council and the private sector. The recommendation is not just a solution, it's a statement of intent. It's about acknowledging the problem and committing ourselves to finding meaningful and lasting solutions. Not just one solution is the establishment of park and ride in Verdun. It's about creating more parking spaces, but it's about reimagining how we approach transport in our region. Imagine a scenario where visitors park their cars at Verdun, hop on a shuttle bus, walk, ride or go for their way into Harndorf. Imagine the relief it would bring to our streets, the ease it would provide our visitors and the opportunities it would unlock for our local businesses. It's not a dream, it's a tangible possibility. By embracing a park and ride option, we also encourage a culture of sustainability and accessibility. We're encouraging our residents to embrace public transport and reducing traffic congestion. No longer will residents have to jostle for a car park in the main street or take up a space in the Kalnitsky car park. Instead, they will have the convenience of a safe for parking and accessible public transport when they're actually commuting to the city. But this journey doesn't end with a park and ride facility. It's about exploring every avenue and considering every option and working hand in hand with our community, businesses and state governments to find a holistic solution. It's about maximising our existing resources, strategically acquiring land and fostering partnerships for the benefit of all. Although could I ask the CEO to consider an additional paragraph advocating for additional infrastructure enhancements that could further amplify the benefits of the proposed park and ride? Specifically, I propose advocating for widening the bridge over the Onkaparinga River and developing a shared use trail connecting the park and ride to the Harndorf Main Street. You may want to refer to it as the Pioneer Women's Trail. The strategic addition will not only encourage walking and cycling from the park and ride, but it would activate existing businesses and foster opportunities for new ventures along that trail. Moreover, it has the potential to seamlessly integrate into future plans such as a trail to the Cedars and Hyson facility, thereby creating a comprehensive network that enhances connectivity and accessibility within our region. So I fully support this motion and authorise the CEO to advocate for this park and ride and continue to explore other avenues for parking solutions. So let's commit ourselves to this journey, knowing every step forward brings us closer to a brighter Harndorf. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Hardingham. As part of that, I've heard a possible amendment to this motion. Would you, as part of what you were saying, like to include that as amendment to the recommendation?
I'm okay. No, I'm okay if the CEO takes it on board. I think he understands the spirit of what I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who was the seconder? Councillor Westwood. Please, Olga.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to thank Councillor Hardigan for expressing what I think all of us feel in regard to Harndorf, which is from those of us who visitors, those who live there, and those who would like to see Hahndorf even a bigger place for people to journey to and from. And I think that the chances of enhancing parking it has to be done, just has to be done. Thank you.
The other person was to speak to this matter, councillor Grosso.
Yeah, look, picking up the final dot point about the advantage of the park and ride, which I think is ultimately the solution. We can tinker around with other things, but for the bulk that we're looking at, that seems to be the most practical, cost-effective solution to me. But advantage to service current and future increased volume of public transport commuters by formalising the site for this use. Just a little thing to keep in the back of mind of staff, I would hope going forward that it would be great at some point to advocate the state government for bicycle transporting facilities on buses. If we're going to have, there's probably a case for specific buses that go express from the city to Hahndorf. There's enough people, that'd be encouraging, not having to muck around and stop and, that'd be one thing to advocate for, but in that case, especially, if we get something for cyclists to shift bicycles, because a lot of people come to the hills to cycle, some of them ride up, some of them drive up and then cycle. A one-way option would be great. You could do it long rather than having to go up the hill. You have the fun of going down the hill. And it not only keeps cars out of Hahndorf, but we can encourage as many people as possible to use public transport, but it keeps cars off of the freeway, less congestion, less accidents, less environmental damage and greenhouse gases. So just a small point to, I think one of the possibilities with the park and ride, we try to accommodate.
I'm sure that can be explored.
It's very popular cycling hills. Thousands of people do it every weekend.
Notice. Any other person would like to speak? Councillor Harding.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to support approaching the state government. We're going forward with the solution, but I think it does need that jurisdiction to have influence over multiple stakeholders. And I think Hahndorf, as much as we love it and value it as our own, I consider it a state asset with 1 million visitors. I've heard once it's the second most visited town in South Australia, or place in South Australia.
I think it's the first.
First, outside of Adelaide. So I think it's appropriate that we really go upline and try and get as much support at that level as possible. Thank you.
Any other member, councillor Seger, had his hand up?
Thank you. I'd like to endorse councillor Hardingham's comments and councillor Harding's comments in relation to Hahndorf, in relation to state government project failed, delayed project in terms of the bird under change, which directly impinges on this. My question or my comments are actually in relation to the assessment of the Karminski Park. I note that there's no plan or intention to develop that other than potentially a minor development to possibly down a few car parks on the current site. You talked about the poor condition of the balance of the reserve, and I'm wondering essentially whether it's possible to negotiate, invite, whatever the appropriate word is, the local community group to undertake works on that site to improve its biodiversity value by removing the weeds, including several invasive species that are there, which in fact are our responsibility as a landowner. So I would like to see that addressed, not necessarily through this, but in parallel perhaps as complement to that report. Other than that, I think this is an excellent report, and the park and ride will certainly serve the Hahndorf's community well. Thank you.
Any other person wish to speak to this matter? Then I will heartily endorse councillor Hardingham, who very well put together speech at the start of this motion, and particularly I endorse the very necessary pedestrian bridge down at the Dun end of town. If you're going to go to all the trouble of doing that down there, you have to give people on GoPro scooters, push bikes and walking safe harbour to get across that part of the river. That is an important part of this whole recommendation, and I thank you, councillor, for bringing that to the attention of the CEO and other people in this room. All those in favour?
Point of order.
Sorry. And again, I've forgotten you, councillor Hardingham. I don't know what it is, but I apologise and thank you for the timely reminder. Third time tonight, councillor already keeping track. Councillor Hardingham to close.
Nothing further, thank you.
Thank you. All those in favour? All those not in favour? I'll start again. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. And the next item, which is 12.13. Overnight stay on council land policy. We have a recommendation on page 253. Would anybody like to move that way? Councillor Stewart. Seconder? Councillor Bowe. Councillor Beard.
Nothing further to add.
Councillor Bowe.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question. I noted that it was, two nights overstay sort of change in the policy that's what I was looking at. Any clarification as to why 2 nights was considered the optimum and not, possibly more? I've heard from people that travel around that 2 nights is actually 1 full day, and I suppose in the people in town. Yeah, just interested into why we didn't go along with that. Thank you.
Thank you. That question can be answered by the CEO or his delegate.
I need to find tonight.
Yeah.
I've got to look for some help here. No, I can't answer that question. I know that Mr. Tan had consulted extensively and had been given the advice on which to form this policy. I can only take on notice. I'm sorry, unless someone here can answer that. I cannot answer that question. Not tonight, but I will have him contact you. And it being a policy, one thing I can say is that these, well, maybe I'll be the constructive on the feet. The fact that it is a policy makes it easier to change and alter and amend and be more fluid and flexible. So that's one of the reasons why it is a policy as opposed to a bylaw, which had been way of the past. So the fact that it is a new policy means, I think, notwithstanding Tan's response to you, it means that you as a councillor can monitor, assess and make a judgment about whether or not it should be altered in the future. So that's the advantage of it being a policy.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Councillor Westwood.
Thank you, Beth. I've travelled around the state a fair bit, certainly recently, and a lot of ad hoc camping areas within other local government areas, and they all have this commonality of around 2 to 3 nights max. So I'm not exactly sure where that comes from, but it's a very common thing that 2 to 3 nights is a go. I'd like to commend this particular policy. I think it's a great idea. A number of people have come up to me and said, there's an point that at the Oval, how come we don't use it as an overnight stay? This almost gets there. I know the policy for the showgrounds in particular is that it's an overnight stay will be permitted in associated only with an event being held at that particular location, which is unfortunately, I believe, quite restrictive, and I think that it'll need to be looked at in the long term because it's a very popular place. People are staying there overnight as it is, despite the policy or any bylaw or anything like that. And I think that once this is bedded in, I think a review would be particularly useful after say 6 to 12 months. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Seager.
Thank you. Overall, I have very little problem with this. There are 2 issues I do have a problem with. One is the maximum overnight stay of 2. I don't know where that comes from, and apparently no one on the bench does either. So, I wonder whether that could be, in this instance, be at the discretion of the management of the CRPI up to a maximum of 4 or 5 days, because, and the reason I say that is because the announcement of the gather round, we have had inquiries from a number of places wishing to stay at the RV park. Accommodation is quite constrained in the hills for people in general and for caravans and so on. And we've had people wishing to, coming from Tasmania, wishing to stay for 4 nights. If I came from Tasmania, I think it'd be annoyed if I had to move after 2 days. It's a pretty long way to come. You don't want to be moving every 5 minutes. It's a long, you know, we're in fact every 2 days. So I would like that to be considered, and I don't know how we go about it because we're adopting a policy that has a number in it. I'd sort of like to sort of ring around that. The other thing I'm a bit concerned about is the definition of portable cooking appliance. Any solid fuel that had to be in a container, subject to permit conditions on, you know, fire bans and so on. My question in relation to that is that, to my mind, will allow someone to burn firewood. And then the question becomes where they get the firewood. Do they just take it out of a tree over there? And who will be responsible for this assessment as to whether it's appropriate? And when and how it will be policed and by whom? Who will be liable for breach of a permit for which assuming in the fire ban? And I think we need to specify that no campfires or comfort fires, because otherwise for people like a fire other than cooking, but you're not really cooking, you actually like a comfort fire. I think we need to be more specific and clearer about that, because I am on the CRPI committee and I can't see anyone on that committee who's got time to run around and chase after people lighting fires, claiming they're a cooking fire, when in fact they're probably not. We already have the issue of people lighting fires in a container at the centre, which causes various problems. I do not like that clause at all in terms of fires. I think if you have an RV park, you will probably have a gas stove in your van, and therefore, and so you don't need a solid fuel fire. I actually think we need to look at that quite seriously, because I think it's a flaw and it's virtually unpoliceable. There's no one out there to do it, no volunteer. What authority do they have to say not to do this? I'm sorry, it's in effect, it would not be policed because, are we going to call, is a CRPI member going to call someone? Who are they going to call? The CFS, council? I think that needs to be revisited. I think it's a significant flaw. And that's my lot.
Thank you, councillor Seeger. If I chance my arm at an opinion from the front, solid fuel, to my mind, is only permitting the burning of charcoal, which is your Webbers and your barbecues held in a solid container. And I agree with you that the lighting of fires for cooking is not very sensible, and I think we have sufficient rules that prevent people from lighting a fire in the manner that you described.
And with respect, it actually, cooking appliance, any solid fuel cooking appliance that holds fire, that is portable.
And we have a section of the, I'm not sure which one it is, but it's part of the CFS, that the only permissible solid fuel is charcoal and barbecue pellets. I'm pretty sure about that. You're not gonna stop the grey nomads from lighting up a Weber kettle and putting a couple of juicy steaks on. So I agree with what you're saying, that lighting a fire in the middle of the Callington reserve is not on.
I would go back to my previous comments that that is inappropriate for people to burn solid fuel fires, because if they're knocked over, we instantly have a problem. I simply think it should be more specific, and solid fuel should be out of the question. That's my opinion.
Thank you for your opinion, and I'll leave it open for someone else to make an amendment to the recommendation if needed, or we can take it that you will discuss this matter with council staff who are the regulatory role involved. I can go either way, and that's the behest of this meeting. Thank you, councillors. Anybody else that wishes to speak? Councillor Harding.
Thank you, Mayor. Can I propose a slight amendment to this recommendation that says, gives council administration the opportunity to make some slight amendments, administrative amendments, that would incorporate the 2-night stay and possibly the fire issue.
Great idea. Can that amendment be included? I'll wait for secretarial service to get it up on the screen.
Or through you, Mayor. If, we don't need to be as
We
specific.
don't. I think
about-
we should stick to your wording, councillor.
Yeah, just keep it pretty general,
Let the
because
councillor-
the night stay could refer to any of the destinations. It's just really administrative.
CEO has a lot of delegations. This extra one is a great idea. Thank you.
Just keep it.
Keep it simple.
Thank you.
Do we need to add the words regarding length of stay and fires, or do we leave it at the CEO?
Yeah, look, I think if I can find some, I mean, the council's adopting a policy, it's pretty substantive, it's new. And my advice is that somewhere between where you're at and where they were at, and that is that simply you specify the delegation CEO about the length of stay.
Yeah.
Okay, and, the matter to fire, because what you're really saying is you find with the policy,
Yep.
those two matters, it's about negotiating that balance.
Yep.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yep.
I think
And
that's
a
a
review
legit,
of the policy, maybe to be able to include future destinations in future.
Yes.
Let's review the
well, there is
policy.
a,
and
there is a
follow.
review
Yeah.
clause in the policy content
Perfect.
anyway.
Yep, perfect, thank you.
Do I have a seconder to the amendment? Thank you, councillor Sclasey. Councillor Hardingham, I invite you to speak to the amendment again.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I think the intent of the policy is sound, and I think we're trying to encourage visitation to our district. And I think by making it as flexible, and encouraging people to extend their journeys so that they spend more time in our district is only going to be a positive thing. And I note councillor Seeger's concern in regards to fires, particularly in the summer season, so it could be broader around that. So thank you.
A seconder, speak to the amendment.
I think it's a very workable amendment for start, share council Seeger's concerns regarding fire safety, especially in our district. And yeah, I would like further information also on the length of studies and see if there is a bit of interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other person who should speak to the amendment? I'll revert to councillor Hardingham.
Perfect, thank you.
All those in favour? All those in favour of the amendment? Carry. We now return to the original motion, or the amendment now becomes the motion. We have the capacity for other people to speak to it. Would any other person like to go further down this track? Councillor Hewitt, close.
And nothing further to add, thank you.
Thank you. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Well done. Everybody. Move to item 12 14, and councillor Harry, Deputy Mayor, I've got a page open here for you. I have a biro. Let me know when you finish. Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Now, we're at 12.14, report of council members' allowance and benefits policy. Deputy Mayor, if I may, I'd like to propose an alternate motion to that, which is the recommendations. Yes. I understand that there is, it should be on. That would be my motion. We have a second to that proposed amendment, the alternative motion. Thank you, Councillor Halligan. Councillor West, would you like to speak to the motion? Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I had some concerns with regards to the original motion, in that I questioned the timing of it, in that the policy is reviewed automatically at the end of a council term, and we're here now reviewing that halfway through a council term. Basically, other than the sections in blue in regards to the mayoral use of a motor vehicle, most of those amendments to the policy could probably be done under delegation. This would never have got here. So I turned my mind with regards to that section which is most effective, which seems to be the section which has brought this policy change to council, which is the use of a mayoral motor vehicle and the use of facilities by the mayor. And I would have thought that the use of a mayoral vehicle would be for the discharge of mayoral duties and functions, and I would have thought that would be just pretty much it. I then had a quick look at section 78 of the Local Government Act, in fact subsection 3, that says, member of council must not use a facility or service provided by the council under this section for a purpose unrelated to the performance or discharge of his official function or duties. It then goes on to say, unless the use has been approved by the council and the member has agreed to reimburse the council for any additional costs or expenses associated with this use. So I look at where other councils sit. Burnside Council provides a car parking space for the mayor. And that's it. Petrie Gully does exactly the same thing. You get a car parking space for your mayor, and you use your own car to park there because you've got that space. Many other councils provide a fully serviced motor vehicle for the mayor to use on official business. That's it. There's one particular council, the Coorong Council, where the mayor actually has to approach the CEO for the use of any car, because, you know, obviously it's a pool car. There are a few councils which have gone down the road of full private use. Now, I look at that and I think my personal opinion is the legislation strictly prohibits that, in that it says that it has to be reimbursed and it has to be approved by council. So a private use of the open slather of private use of a motor vehicle to me would be against the legislation, and I wonder why these councils would go down that path. I think that's a very dangerous path to go down. So at the end of it, I thought, and I consider this really carefully, because the mayor absolutely deserves the use of a car whilst undertaking any duties that are associated with the mayor. Private use is a different matter, because it then introduces the method by which you have to work out reimbursement. You then have the administrative efforts of staff to work that out and to monitor it and to chase it down. You then have the work of the particular mayor, who has to then also follow, comply, and do all of that administration work to make sure that everyone is on board with what's going on, so that there can be no question of any sort of impropriety by any mayor doing, using a motor vehicle in a private capacity. And that is basically the reason why I have asked, proposed this motion, which removes that section out of the policy, which refers to any sort of private use of a motor vehicle, because it is a path I believe this council should not be going down, and I don't believe that the extra administrative work in reimbursements, the CEO's effort in working out a method by which that reimbursement should be measured and paid. And so that is the reason why I proposed that particular motion. The remainder of the motion remains, or the remainder of the policy remains completely untouched. Thank you.
Councillor Harding. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I concur with Councillor Westwood's concerns. I think it's a slippery slope, authorising private use of a mayoral vehicle. I think it's public money, and it's our ratepayers' money, and it should be used for ratepayers' purposes, and that is mayoral duties. And I think it's very clear, it's in line with the legislation, and we're being prudent to the legislation. And I think going to our ratepayers and saying we've authorised the mayor to use the car for personal use is going to be a challenging conversation. That I don't know that would really stack up the pub test. So I support Councillor Westwood's amendment. Thank you.
Any other members? Councillor Harding.
Yes, through you, Deputy Mayor, I'm just wondering logistically, and I have had company vehicles and had to juggle personal and work use, and it was always made easier when that vehicle was at home. So you didn't have to juggle cars, drive somewhere. Sometimes, you know, your starting and ending point was your home for use of that work vehicle, and that was an accepted practice, and you get your logbook accordingly. I'm just wondering, in an arrangement where it is strictly mayoral use, what the garaging expectations might be for the mayoral car.
Like an opinion on that.
Through
I'm not sure.
Through you, Deputy Mayor. Look, it's a policy decision of council and management of any facility or service provided to any elected member, in particular the mayor. There are some councils where the mayor has to go to the principal office of the council or the depot and retrieve the mayoral or a car for mayoral use. And in most instances though, the mayor is able to take the vehicle home and garage the vehicle at home, but only then activates the use of that vehicle for use associated with the statutory duties and responsibilities of the office of the mayor. Now, it is well understood that if the mayor was to leave here tonight and pull into a garage and get a pint of milk or a 2-litre milk on the way home, that private use ancillary to his normal trip for council business would be an acceptable component of private use, but nothing further than a mere incidental deviation from point A to point B, where that point A to point B trip is mayoral official duties. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. So second question, does that need to be consideration made at the same time to any adjustments to the original recommendation? Do we need to do decision making around that?
Are you asking that, do we need to be specific in relation
To those
allowing the mayoral vehicle be garage at the private residence of the mayor?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, I don't necessarily see it as a requirement for a resolution. I think that's an accepted practice.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I have two questions, if I may. The first is, we've had a new mayor in office for 1 year. May I ask if the former mayor was entitled to private use of a car, and if that was ever a consideration in this document being passed?
Well, I know she had the use of the car, but whether it's private use, I couldn't actually answer directly, because I don't know. Perhaps.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, the Act has been clear since in the previous term of council that a mayoral vehicle is not to be used for private use unless the council resolves that way.
At the council resolved, I'm just wondering how long we have been against legislation that's all this recent, or if that was occurring prior to a year and some months ago.
Again, through the Deputy Mayor, I haven't looked at the activities of the former mayor. I've only necessarily looked at what's happening in this term of council.
Right, thank you. Second question, if I may. I know that the logbook can help in these instances to differentiate between private use, which is necessary, and mayoral use. Is that something that could be done?
Its possibility would be up to the members to stipulate that, I would imagine. I think that's where it would have to lie. It would have to be a decision of council to A, allow private use, B, to prescribe a form of how that might be accounted, which would go against Councillor Westwood's notion of avoiding complexity and time. So that's a decision for the members. Any other?
Yeah, very good, man. Deputy Mayor. Look, I'm a little bit confused about this. There's a lot of, I think, I'm not picking up on the trends here. I'm confused as to this idea that the mayor is you know, moving in between his duties as a mayor and a private. I think we understand as councillors that there is a blended kind of field to be in. You know, like I could be doing something leisurely on the weekend and immediately be confronted with someone, and suddenly I'm working as a councillor in that capacity. So I'm confused as to how we're going to really shape this with that sort of grey area in the middle, and to that point, I'm a little confused as to why this was sort of brought up in this manner, and in similar vein to Councillor Slasky's questions about previous incidences. Yeah, it's a bit out of the blue for me, and I'm struggling to follow in with the arguments, and then when it comes to vote on this, I'm still a bit confused as to how it's going to play out. So probably just seeking a bit more clarity. Nothing else.
Thanks. I think it seems clear that the legislation seems quite clear in terms of about private use. That is somewhat clouded by some council obviously providing some amount of private use. Question of as to whether the mayoral car has been used by implication by either the previous mayor or current mayor for private use. I don't have an answer to that. I think this policy and this issue has been raised to establish certainty as to what position we want to take, and Councillor Westwood has seemingly strongly suggested we should take a strict legal interpretation. Personally, I would, as Ms. Hancock has suggested, temper with the reality of garaging the car at home, and beyond that, if we're going to go down the path of looking at private use, I don't think it's possible to go beyond that use.
without potentially going into the question of what is a fair thing. Prior to the discussion tonight, I'll make it clear, prior to the discussion tonight, my position was that minor private use would not be an issue. I think clearly from tonight's discussion, I no longer hold that view. I believe minor private use would be an issue, it could be seen to be an issue, and therefore my thinking is now more in line with that expressed by Councillor Westwood. It is up to you members to, if there are any other questions or comments. If there aren't, yes, there are. Another question?
Got a question.
Councillor Hardingham.
Thank you, through you. Private use, how do you circle around what private use actually is? How do you extend so that, your spouse uses the marital vehicle to go shopping? The spouse or other members of the family or household under the private use now has access to a marital car for private use. How do you bring back that so that it keeps it tighter without conflicting against the legislation? And with respect to previous mayor's use, the policy was that there was no private use in the policy. Therefore, we reverted back to the legislation, which said the marital vehicle is not for private use. It's purely for marital responsibilities. So I think you can take, where actually, and I don't know why, and I think the timing's strange, as to why all of a sudden we're introducing mid-term a policy that all of a sudden includes the option for private use. So, but that's not my question. My question is around private use. Is that extended to family members?
No, I don't think under any circumstances that marital use could be considered to be used by a family member or spouse. That is clearly.
But that's personal use.
That is, no, it's not personal use. Personal use is private use by my understanding of personal use would be personal private use by the mayor who is entitled to the car for their purposes in their private life, not to provide a vehicle for another member of the family. And clearly the ratepayers do not pay cost of car to be used in that manner. And that is where I personally had the difficulty of where I would have made a loose noose. I don't feel I can. I feel my opinion now is Councillor Westwood's amendment clearly addresses what could be a difficult situation, and while it may seem onerous, it is also to meet the requirements of the Act. I think it must be complied with. That's what I said. Thank you. Councillor Harding.
Thank you. Asking, but also thinking out loud. The definition as Councillor Harding and Councillor Vogt have taken different perspectives. But I think the definition of what is a mayoral duty or a principal elected member duty is also, yeah, I think both cases have the same issue, but I'm imagining that there is a standard.
Point of order.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm getting sorry.
Is this a question?
It is a question. A very, very long preamble. I'm getting it. Is it possible to define at least the elected member use by aligning diary appointments? So if it is something at a sporting event that wasn't a mayoral duty, but it is an elected member duty and it aligns with the diary, would that then satisfy any ambiguity there? I think it was worth it, wasn't it?
I want to understand what you're seeking to.
I'm just trying to,
establish.
yeah, I'm just wondering, are there standard ways of getting clarity on?
I don't see how I could differentiate between the mayoral duties and elected member duties, because the mayor in fact is an elected member,
it's the same.
but is the mayor. And so if he's going to place Y, for purposes as an elected member, he's also doing this as mayor and vice versa, so you can't, I fail to see how you can differentiate between those two. Councillor Gosser.
Look, without discussing whether Mayor Ferguson used the car for private use or not, I certainly can't remember that there's ever any discussion about the issue in my 12 years under Mayor Ferguson. I doubt if there was on the previous 4 years per first term as mayor, so yeah, it's somewhat surprised it's coming up now. I hear what you're saying about the legal requirements under the Act, so it would be a good thing probably to have done it, change the terms, but well, here we are halfway through, so yeah, a bit surprised, but
Ms. Hancock would like to make a comment later.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. The reason it's coming up now is because the Mayor has requested personal use of the mayoral vehicle. This is not a policy change being brought forward by the administration.
So thank you, Ms. Hancock, for deterring that, because it was getting a bit awkward. We didn't bring this on ourselves. It's requested specifically by the mayor. And if I could then add to it, you know, sometimes people overthink things, you know, like to be the mayor of a district like Mount Park and give you a pretty wide licence to travel in the course of ordinary duties as a mayor. So it's fairly, you know, pretty broad. You don't need to overcomplicate it.
Councillor Slater.
Question. Look, I do see in the blue section in here that has been added by staff, quite clearly, the mayor will reimburse the council for any and all personal use. So, will that be the case here, if we start with the original motion? That if the car was to be used for personal use, it would be reimbursed, all costs would be reimbursed.
As I understand it, Councillor Slater, the original motion is, we're not speaking of the original motion, we're speaking of the amended motion put forward by Councillor Westwood in the new motion, sorry. And so therefore, that is not relevant. I think it's not relevant. And the question is not about reimbursement, it is about private use. The question is, do you allow private use or not? And then how you deal with private use is a subsidiary question or consequence. And until such time we decide on private use, it's pointless ultimately discussing, or in my opinion, discussing how you might deal with reimbursement or otherwise and management thereof, etc., etc.
Well, my question was because it's been brought up costs and I could say that the cost would have been covered, so that was the reason for the question. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So if there's no other discussion, I think, Councillor West, would you like to close the debate?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I don't know whether this makes it any easier for people to sort of understand, but some of the terminology used by other councillors in their policies refer to in performing and discharging official duties, council business. Yep. Lots of performing and council duties and council business. So I think, as the CEO has mentioned, I think it's a fairly broad brush approach as to what a mayor can use the mayoral car for. I've worked for a long time, and I had a company car, and I had to be really, really careful with what I did with it, because I was allowed to park it at home, take it to work, bring it home, take it to work, bring it home. That was it. And I would imagine that, to my mind, this motion would be exactly the same. You use it as a mayor's vehicle, take it home. As Ms. Hancock suggests, that would be probably, you know, perfectly acceptable buying some milk on the way home. I thought you were going to suggest something else, but anyway. To councillor Votes' thoughts of, you know, the blended usage, I guess the grey area between the mayoral council duties and private duties. I would have thought that the mayor would be, and any elected member would be able to make that definition pretty easily, to say this is council work, this is actually not council work. So I would suggest that, that's probably where we're at. Again, I've proposed this motion in order to simplify the process to make sure that it passes the pub test. It reduces any administrative issues in regards to working out the use of private use and the reimbursement thereof, and to make sure that it's transparent. Thank you.
All right, I'll just make a comment that, I think what we're trying to achieve here is a clear and transparent view of private use and clarity as to what can and can't do. And I believe that the Councillor Westwood motion goes a long way towards doing just that. I'll now put to the vote unless there are any other comments. No, there aren't. Just silence closed. Therefore, all those in favour of the new motion? Was that a yes or a no? It's two hands up. Like that. Are you voting, Ian? Thank you. Councillor Ross, thank you. That is in fact unanimous. Thank you. Thank you. I shall go on. Mr. Ian. We're good.
Item 12.15, review of council delegations. Extensive recommendation for you on page 287 through to page 289. Who wishes to move along these lines of the recommendation? Councillor Westwood. Seconder, please. Councillor Vogt. Councillor Westwood, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a regular feature of council meetings in the delegations mode. And I can't see any issue with it. I think that the Chief Executive Officer, the CEO, will be having a wonderful time being delegated all these duties.
He said thanks. Any other member? Councillor Westwood to close.
Nothing further, thanks, Mayor.
All those in favour? Carried. 12.16. Board donations are nil. So we're nil on this page. Right there now. Do I have somebody move that council adopt those bids by councillors? Councillor All, Councillor Vogt, Councillor All to speak.
No, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Vogt.
It doesn't, Mayor.
Thank you. All those in favour? Carried. Move to item 13.1, information reports. The following reports be noted on block. There is, in 13.1, there is a report on the update in hard waste collection. And I'm not seeing the second one, so I'm going to move that way. Councillor Orr. councillor Westwood as seconder, councillor Orr.
Thank you, Mayor. To be clear, we can speak to any information report.
You can.
Excellent. I'd like to address namely the hard waste collection service, just to highlight that there have been several tonnes diverted from landfill as a result of this service, which I'm quite glad to hear. I also know that a lot of the feedback we're receiving is in regard to the pricing. I'm very glad to hear that the complaints about the lack of a hard rubbish collection service has significantly dropped. So we are certainly getting there, slowly but surely. And would like to thank staff for the work they've put together on collating this report, but also the service altogether, and look forward to seeing the full 12-month review. Thank you very much.
Welcome, councillor Westwood.
Thank you, Mayor.
Any other member? Councillor Selassie.
With a different opinion. I spoke to this item as a new councillor in January 2003, and my sentiments regarding community expectations remain the same. Whilst I respect that this is a decision of the previous council, the feedback I have received and continue to receive from the community is that a user pays model is currently a little unpopular. I note that only 49 residents in the last 6 months have taken up the service. This equates to just under 2 pickups per week over the 26-week period. I also think it's worth noting that of the 43 service complaints received by Arana regarding the service, 41 of these have been in regard to the pricing of the service in comparison to other councils. I appreciate that this is a new service offering by council and that greater promotion is absolutely necessary. I also understand that previous council arrived at the user pays model to achieve full cost recovery, so as not to burden all ratepayers in the district with running this service. I'm grateful for this staff report, as it shows that the new service is being carefully monitored and that the customer satisfaction, or initial lack thereof, is being noted. I look forward to the full review at the 12-month mark to assess the service and to monitor whether the expectations of the community are being met. Thank you.
We have councillor wish to speak, councillor Seeger, then councillor Harding.
Thank you, Your Worship. I noticed the 49 services provided approximates 1/3 of inquiries. I do appreciate the fact that people perhaps unrealistically believe that council would provide a hard waste service that would cost a reasonable amount of money per service and would do it for nothing out of the goodness of our heart and expect other ratepayers to pay for it rather than themselves. So from my perspective, that's an unrealistic situation. I think the full cost recovery model is actually quite reasonable. It also sends the message that if you make lots of rubbish, it costs you lots of money. It's in the same way as our ordinary waste collection services are increasing, and the state government puts a levy on to increase utilisation and diversion of waste. The same way as we have, you could equally argue that putting a deposit on a bottle of drink shouldn't be done, because after all, that someone else, the fairy, should come and clean it up. No, I actually think it's perfectly reasonable to charge what it costs to clean up someone's rubbish. If they don't want to use the service, there are other alternatives. They can hire a trailer and take the dump themselves. It's perfectly reasonable, perfectly allowable. Or they can get a friend to do it, etc., etc. I'm not entirely sympathetic, as you can tell. I think it will take some time for people to understand that the production of rubbish and the disposing of it costs money, and it should be borne by the person who produces the rubbish, not by some other person. So I'm satisfied that yes, it'll get off to a slow start, and over time I think people can understand that yes, it costs money and you might want to do something about it. I was pleased to note nearly 5 tonnes of steel and 98 cubic metres of material didn't go into landfill. So it is encouraging, it's slow, the message will get out there. I think we should stick to our guns. There is a hard waste service now provided, and people need to understand it's not free. Thank you.
Councillor Harding.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, I'm unaware, so therefore wondering if there will be another opportunity for broader community feedback to be received by council. Recommendations, suggestions or explanations of personal circumstances ahead of the next review.
This council prides itself on being in a permanent state of consultation with any member of the public on any matter. I don't expect another formal consultation, but I can assure you that we have received 49. I think, was it? How many was it? A number of people did give their feedback. 148 phone calls and 46 emails to Arana, and that people have made complaints. And so I think the consultation process is working excellently at the moment, and there's plenty of capacity for people to provide their feedback. And I think we've consulted well on this in the past, and let the process continue. My view, unless Mr. CEO or Mr. Burton would wish to.
And through you, Mayor, I think, what's notable is, the hard waste is a declared fee and charge of council as part of any business planning and budget process. Those fees and charges are set and they're consulted on with the community, so if the community want to have a say, that opportunity is coming through May and June.
Councillor Grosso.
Yeah, look, I endorse the words of Councillor Seeger. I think if you don't have full cost recovery, then in effect, those who create more waste are probably being subsidised by those who are careful to create less waste, or there's potential for that to occur at least. I think it's the wrong kind of subsidisation. And what service are we going to cut if we have free for all free hard waste, or are we going to incrementally increase rates? And how competitive is with rates? Personally, I feel like we got the system quite right, the model quite right. What I've sort of advocated for since it first got raised in council, not only with the fee, but diverting a lot of waste to recycling, and I think employing special needs people, so which is a good outcome, and providing a cheap service is a lot cheaper. It's half or less, I think, than the price of hiring a 2 cubic metre skip. So I think we've got it right personally. I think staff have done a good job with the model that they developed. Just another comment too on 13.2, the environmental, was it climate change?
We're not up to 13.2, councillor.
13.3. I thought we were speaking on each of the parts.
We are.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, updating the council's response to climate change. I know it's slightly out of our control. It's a matter of state government having taken over planning from us, but anything we can do to try to influence the housing, to be a bit more energy efficient, it's a big issue because there's a lot of houses getting built, and most of them are fully dependent on air conditioning, which is not a good housing response in the 2020s. I think it references houses of tomorrow without really saying much about where that program is going. I'd like staff and elected members to keep giving thought to how we can encourage. We haven't as yet got a model display village, like an exemplary village where there's a few houses. That we need to encourage developers to have those sorts of houses on display. Yeah, with limited influence, but we can advocate and educate. And hopefully get some outcomes here, because I drive around the district and see a houses that it's going to be a heat box environment in a warming climate. I don't know whether it's mandated that you need to have dark roofs. I get asked that question a bit, so if anybody knows whether developers can mandate it, but you get old burgs where every house has got a dark grey roof. So what's going on there? They're all going to be heat traps.
Well, I can answer your question because I've posed it before, and they say that a great big sea of white roofs would be very glaring, and that was the reason it was handed to me. That was the reason handed to me, councillor.
And is it that the developers are mandating that you want to build an estate, you build a dark grey roof? That's.
I'm going to let that one go to the current general manager of planning. The poison chalice.
Look, I'll have a crack at it. I can only endorse what the mayor said. I mean, he's quite right. I mean, the concerns about seas of white roofs and finding that balance is what they're aiming to do. But I really can't add much more in an intelligent way than that, Councillor Rosser. It's not my area of expertise. We should ring Mr. Wharton since he's closely connected to the matter now.
So it could be that developers are requiring the dark roofs, or it could be that they're not sure.
Well,
That's what I get asked, that's what I've been wondering.
look, I can only take that on notice to get a better answer than that. I feel obliged to do that, to be honest. I've sat in those conversations where I haven't been the principal officer concerned. I've heard the debate, and you end up sitting there as somebody who's a non-technician thinking, well, there's an argument for, there's an argument against. It's just, there's arguments both sides, and I can't give you anything better because I start to zone out when they start getting into that sort of technical debate. So, you know, I'm sorry, I feel a bit inadequate, but I'll do my best to get a better answer to you.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. And apologies, councillor Rosser, immediately that I cut you off in your prime. I should have noticed the report and all the basis. Thank you, councillor Rosser. Any other person wish to speak to councillor Selassie?
I have a question, please, regarding the hard waste service item. Just, I've heard free, the word free, and I don't know that free would be attainable for a hard waste service. I don't think it would be possible. However, there is in the report reference to a neighbouring council that becomes subsidised. So this is hopefully an easy question. My understanding is that there is provision within the model, if necessary in the future, to vary the method for how it is funded at council's discretion. Is that correct?
Thank you for the question. Mr. Burton?
Well, see, I'll have a crack at that one. The model that was established and endorsed by council at the time looked at a couple of different options in regards to how much rebate will be provided. And so, as I said before, there's a fair charge that's set by council. So at the time the budget comes forward, you can seek to amend the fee. But I'll just point out that tonight you've endorsed the long-term financial plan, which has consideration to curbside waste fees and charges, but also considered the longer-term impacts of the collection of waste services to our community. And so we are trying to balance, I guess, the long-term sustainability of waste services to our community with those fees and charges. So in altering the model, it will ultimately have an impact on the long-term sustainability in regards to the provision of waste services.
I'm not proposing to alter it anytime soon. I think the trial certainly needs to run its course. It sounds like just responding to community feedback, and you'd love to see how it goes in the future, and it goes well, and if not, there is some provision there to change it if necessary.
Yeah, I just say to me, we've indicated a 12-month review report, so we're on target to provide that report after 12 months, and then a decision can be made to amend the service from there.
Thank you, Mr. Burton. Any other members wish to speak to any of the four reports? Councillor Seager.
I've already spoken, and I would like to ask the leader of the meeting to make comments in relation to council-sponsored climate change. I was not aware that we were doing it on block. And so I did not make comment in relation to that.
I would seek leave of the meeting for councillor Seager to be the same as me, who didn't realise there were four reports. I can take a nod of heads that we are agreed that councillor Seager would have another go.
Thank you. There's a long list of actions that council has undertaken, and however, overall, I see a lot of planning and a lot of words, and I, having worked in the field of biodiversity, natural resource management, I remember seeing a lot of similar words and a lot of similar things, and every 5 years we make a new plan. What I'm concerned about is the boots on the ground response. I do understand, I do accept that council has undertaken considerable work in relation to biodiversity, and commend the council for developing partnerships such as seeing the establishment of the Mount Barker Nursery. I would like to see more work in relation to things that have a greater impact. We have vast field of street lighting. Now, I do understand that street lighting sits with
I think SA Power Networks, I'm not really sure, or whoever the power company is, and there are issues and costs in relation, I would, regardless, I think we need to be demonstrating and doing things that have effects now, even if in a accounting sense, they are uneconomical, because it's important from my perspective that we demonstrate actions that actually start having effects now. Putting on solar arrays is good, putting on more is better, reducing consumption of street lights is good, reducing the consumption of more street lights is better. The issue about how council has a limited capacity by virtue of the state government having seized control of the planning world, to the detriment of council's planning, I think is well known and understood. Like Councillor Grosser, I cannot understand why we have black roofs. For your interest, in the 1920s, certainly Mr. Cheney, who went on to become famous for producing Dodge motor cars, was somewhat disgusted by the fact that Dodge motor cars came in black mostly, and a closed black car in Australia without air conditioning was not a very nice place to be. And he came up with a lovely colour, very akin to the colour of that silver, which is called Cheney Grey, and painted all of his cars that colour, and sold a lot more of them because of it. It's not new, and those engineers who argue back and forth about being blinded, I don't think you have to have glossy roofs, you can have matte roof and a lot. I just think we need to actually, I want to see more things that actually reduce our power consumption and address what is a looming crisis. By any stretch of imagination, is not good enough to plan for tomorrow. We should have been doing this 25 years ago. We need to be doing it now. We need to raise the priority of this for this council, for this community, because it is in fact a dangerous time we're going into, and we're walking into it quite blind, and we're doing it very, very slowly in terms of our addressing the issue. That's my.
Any other member? You can respond, Mr. Bird. Please do.
Through you, Mayor, just in response to that, I just wanted to highlight or remind, the council has commenced the program with the LGA, one of 15 regional councils participating in an energy and emissions reduction program, and the kick-off meeting is today. And so Sarah Barrett has been assigned as the project officer, I'm sure you know Sarah, and she's working on that as a project manager with the LGA. That will, in summary, identify all the major opportunities for council to reduce energy consumption and reduce their emissions at the same time. We hopefully have some positive cost impacts for council as well. So that's a mapping exercise happening now. It's going to result in very tangible outcomes. Council had a budget of $180,000 this year to commence some energy reduction programs. We sent a memo to you, so I can't find the date, but it was a few weeks ago. Advise the status of that from memory. I'll check that after this and make sure that you've got access to that. That's been deferred a little bit, that energy reduction initiative, until this planning work's done. We're going to target those high energy usage sites. They've already been identified today. Once we've identified those, then we'll put the actions in place to reduce energy consumption and emissions at those sites. We've got more information coming to you, but I just want to reassure you that we are very much targeted as an action, and we're working with the LGA in a very cost-effective way to identify those sites and take action to the project.
Thank you, Mr. Burton.
Thank you, Mr. Burton. We now go continue on. Is there any other member wishes to speak to any of the 4 information reports? In that case, Councillor Orr to close.
No, thank you, Mayor.
All those in favour? Carried. Here's to item 14, quarterly reports. I would seek someone to move that the recommendation that the wastewater service quarterly report be accepted. Someone prepared to move that way. Councillor Salassi, and seconded by Councillor Vogt. Councillor Salassi, you have the floor. Councillor Vogt.
Over there.
Any other member? Councillor Selassie. All those in favour? Carried. Move to item 15. The Mayor's report. It is as tendered, and I again reiterate my point, Councillor Seeger. Thank you very much. You do a lot of work that people in this chamber don't notice, and I'm indebted to you for your assistance while I've been unwell. Thank you, Councillor Seeger. Not all the jobs were that tough, I believe, Councillor Seeger.
No, Your Worship, at this point, perhaps I might give a brief report.
Absolutely.
On those specific thing, it will be brief. I attended the Adelaide Rural Commission School welcoming evening for new clinicians and young doctors coming into our district at Pandora. It was quite pleasant, I have to say, hardly arduous, I will confess, but nonetheless. And on the 21st and 22nd, I attended the Southern Hills and Foodo Local Government Station meeting at Kingscote and Kangaroo Island, which was business and pleasure, I would say. Thank you. But in a beautiful location, nonetheless, good things were done there. And on the 29th, I attended the Touring Cup meeting at Sapsaza Carnival at Mountain Pool and was grilled over when the Mountain Pool would close. And I played with the dead bat because I wasn't 100% sure, and then have told them subsequently 2025 will be their last season. And I attended the 40th Albury State at Chunga as Mayor Leach was attending a session at Prakunga, opening of Prakunga. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Seeger. I guess we have to move to accept my Mayor's report, do we, Governance? Or we just note it? Then the same applies to the members' reports. Thank you for submitting the report. We come to item 17, questions arising from the meeting. I think that includes the gallery, doesn't it? It is the gallery only. We have two members of the gallery. If you have a question relating to what we've discussed tonight, now is your opportunity to come and ask that question at this podium, and I request you question and the parcel. It's going to be interesting. Please state your name and your question.
My name's Charlisa, and I'm a student at Water School. I sent an email request to 11 councillors, requesting that I get some funding for a leadership camp that I'm attending in June. I've already raised $600 by myself by selling cream puffs, which have always sold out and I've held in store. I've got some samples with me today for those who are able to try it out, because they just contain dairy, gluten, and eggs and other stuff. So yeah.
Going well, Charlisa, keep it up.
Yeah, so the request was to $50 to $100 from each member potentially. The remaining cost that I need to fill it up is $1,260. I'm currently trying to get myself together to make some more of these stalls. And that's my request.
So in answer to your question, Charlisa, Councillor Hardingham has proposed that council contribute $100 towards your quest. It is not too late, councillors, for you to submit a award donation for the next meeting, which would have some effect on your quest. I do thank you for your question. I find it pretty daunting myself to speak in front of 20 people. You've done extremely well, and I wish you all the best for the leadership program that you wish to attend, and thank you for your question. You have another question? Then I have one question for you.
Yes.
What's in the bags?
There's, vanilla cream puffs, that I've tweaked the recipe myself. And they're, essentially like little hollowed, pastries with, vanilla custards.
And you intend to leave them here for what purpose?
Yes, and there's little notes for everyone, that I sent emails to. Just as a reminder, thanks for listening to my question.
Thank you, Charlie. So well said. Well said, young lady. This brings to an end the part of the meeting that is not. Pardon? End of the meeting, that is not had confidential part to it, so we will be switching off this machine and we will be, I beg your pardon?
Sorry, do we need to vote to go?
We do, but we haven't got to that stage yet. We'll get there. We first need to, I believe, do we close down this machine now at the end of the meeting?
Yeah.
Then you're precisely right, councillor Harding, we should move into, what's the wording? We should, pursuant to section 92 of Local Government Act, council orders that all members of the public except the CEO, the people listed there, are to leave, and that we move into a confidential discussion. You're quite right, councillor. I seek someone to move that way. Councillor Boak, Councillor Hewitt. I don't think there's too much discussion needed. All those in favour? Carried. We'll now shut down this link. And I'll also, seeing that we're past 9 o'clock, I propose with the assent of this meeting to have a 5-minute break. And do I have approval from